Welcome, everyone. This is an exciting night that we are happy to host. This is the event tonight is called Listen to Lead, Listen to Learn, Stories from our Black Community. My name is Kevin Hebert. I am one of the founders of an event called Van Talks. Van Talks is an annual event that we've been doing for 5 years, and this year we had to cancel it because of COVID. And a new format that we've been thinking about is like, what could be a smaller venue that we could really host conversations that mattered to Vancouver? And over the last months, there's been a conversation that has emerged across our country and nation with the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and the atrocities that we have seen, that we wanted to host a place where we could ground ourselves from all of those national headlines and stories and bring it back here to our community. And so tonight is that ability for us to listen and to learn from 4 storytellers of their experience of what it is to be Black in Vancouver and Clark County. And tonight is about listening. It's about learning. And I want to introduce, first of all, our host and maestro for tonight, Tyler Monk. Tyler, got to know Tyler. He was actually going to be one of our speakers for Van Talks 2020. And he is a passionate speaker, storyteller. He is the director of Ready to Rise. And Tyler, welcome to the virtual Zoom stage.
Hey,
Thank you.
On. Hey, Kev, right on, brother. When you reached out to me, that was probably 60-something days ago, man. I was incredibly inspired, you know what I mean, to be a part of this process when we start highlighting the Black voice, because at times, not even at times, the majority of the time, I feel like it is discounted and it's interrupted. And so first things first, what I want to lead with is, y'all, Black Lives Matter. Secondly, what I want to say is I truly, truly, truly appreciate every person that is on this call right now. We know that you're sacrificing time with family. We know that 95% of you are probably in some shorts and a t-shirt. But the reality of the situation is that we truly appreciate you locking in with us tonight for this event. You could have done a lot of other things, in your home, activities, whatever that is. But you chose to be here, to be in an uncomfortable conversation for some of you. And for some of the other folks, this is going to feel like being at home to you, and you're ready for this. And you've heard these conversations, and you're continuing to grow and develop. So I want to kind of lay the land with expectations. So we have 4 speakers, including myself. I will be your facilitator for the evening. So I'll be helping with the introductions and the transitions from our incredible storytellers. I'm telling you, listen, lock in. When these folks come on, they're going to give you 6 to 10 minutes of their story, and it's going to change your heart, I hope, for the better. Something else we're going to do here, we have a music video from her, HER. She's an incredible artist. I believe she's like 22, 23 years old, very socially conscious. For my older folks, my older people, if you know who Lauryn Hill is, she starred in Sister Act 2. She reminds me of a young Lauryn Hill, very conscious, very aware, social justice. She delivers an incredible message and has a beautiful voice. We're going to play a music video from her. So obviously just bear with us as we play that video, because we know that the technology is not always the best on Zoom. And so it might be a little choppy, but you'll at least be able to hear the lyrics and get the message. After that, after we hear from the stories and we play the music video, we're going to hear from our final speaker, Rashida Willard from Clark College. And we're going to do a Q&A with our storytellers. So if you have any questions, what you can see on the screen before we started, you could text those questions right now. If you have a question right now, before we even get started, it's totally fine, to 360-524-4028. Again, that number to text your questions to is 360-524-4028. Now, to be transparent with you, we have roughly 1,000 people on this call. We're not going to be able to get to every question that comes in. Our goal is to kind of decipher through those questions and ask the ones that we think can impact the group as a large. And so if you have a more pointed, more direct question, maybe you want to get to a specific speaker, shoot us those questions and we can see if it makes sense for us to connect you so we can get you that information. So first of all, I just want to say before we jump in, and I have something I want to deliver to you, I want to thank Kevin. You know what I mean? I met Kevin, like I said, several months ago. And I had my audition with Van Talks. I was extremely nervous. And here's the funny thing. I walked up to the audition and I just was waiting for somebody to tell me like, all right, Tyler, you can start now. Nobody said that. And I was like, hey, do I just go? They're like, yeah, go ahead and go. And so I went and I delivered a talk and it was about 3 minutes long. And how I started that talk was with a spoken word. And the spoken word I want to share with you today is centered around potential. I think potential today is an incredible resource that is super underutilized. And I want to share this spoken word with you. It's about 50 seconds long. Hopefully it can inspire your heart to listen. Potential. It is a present, but not yet visible excellence or ability that is just yet to be developed. I said potential. It is a present, but not yet visible excellence or ability that is just yet to be developed. You see, potential is just an opportunity for growth. Humbly knowing it's only limited to your choice. You see, but when it is activated, you're no longer masquerading through the maturation of somebody else's voice. I really need you to speak up to become who you were destined to be. You see, potential is much like cooking, y'all. Just minus the instructions of that recipe. Because inside of you are the ingredients to immediate perspective change. And perspective change is something that allows you to finesse the day. So what are you waiting for? Seize the moment and storm through opportunity's doors and never give up or give in until your reality is actually how you live in your dreams, until your reality is actually how you live in your dreams. I believe that potential is something that we are lacking as far as maximizing. It's incredibly difficult to maximize your potential. But what I know is today, the folks on this call, I want to give you applause because you've taken the step. You say, I want to learn, I want to listen, I want to be educated so I can take action for a better us. So what I want to talk about real quickly is empathy. Empathy grows fonder in the heart through proximity. And there's 3 phases to empathy. Number 1, mental empathy. This is logically being able to put yourself into somebody else's position to see their perspective. However, most often, emotion and feeling for others is left out the equation. What you're doing is you're listening to respond to that person. Number 2 is heart empathy. We allow ourselves to be vulnerable. The key word is vulnerable. So many people are scared to be vulnerable with others. But we allow ourselves to be vulnerable so we can readily understand and feel other people's emotions. You are now upgraded. You're listening to actually learn. And number 3 is the spirit empathy. You demonstrate true compassion and show concern for a person while collectively seeking solutions to create change within the challenge. I'm going to repeat that again because I know I talk fast. My apologies. Spirit empathy, the final phase to empathy. You demonstrate true compassion and you show concern for a person while collectively seeking solutions to create change within the challenge. You listen to learn and lead with action. And that is exactly why we are here today. So what I want to talk to you guys about real quickly is I believe that the biggest barrier from bringing people together to love and share the burdens of our community and seek solutions to a better us is merely due to a lack of closeness. And now when I talk about closeness, I'm not talking about like, well, hold on, I got Black folks that live right next door to me, or I know Jay, Jawan, and he's my friend and, we're close. I'm not talking about physical proximity. Listen to me for a second. I'm confirming the reality that as a community, we must grow closer in our compassion, understanding, and appreciation for those who do not share our same perspective. When you look at it like this, the social unrest in our country is nothing new. I just got off of a call with my scholars from Ready to Rise, which is a leadership development program working with with marginalized students that want to be leaders in their community, and they don't necessarily know how to navigate the system. And what I would tell you is all of these students are having an immense amount of anxiety and pressure and stress from the things that they see that's going on socially in our country. And what I know is this social unrest is not anything new. It's been there all along, and we have not had nearly enough voices from Black folks that can be highlighted, uninterrupted, and not be dismissed or discounted. For years, for decades, for centuries, Black folks have dealt with microaggressions. Now here's the deal. If you don't know what microaggressions is, it's a quick Google. Look it up. We've dealt with microaggressions and we've laughed them off to appease and make white folks feel comfortable with them their implicit bias. If you don't know what implicit bias is, look that up as well. It's a quick Google. We are exhausted, Black folks, we are exhausted with assuming positive intent without any consequences for addressing the impact of folks' words. You see, the pain, frustration, and injustice that Black folks feel runs deeper than the surface of those who are consciously and perpetuate white supremacy, and they're just overtly racist. It's not just about the overtly racist people. We know that those people exist. We know that individual racism is in our country. It is a thing. We are talking about those people that have been silent and have watched from the bleachers as Black folks have been in the game of social justice, giving blood, sweat, and tears to a cause that at times in the Vancouver community seems to be moving at a snail's pace. Like my great friend Rashida Willard says, we are done with starting a conversation on systemic racism. We've been starting. Where are those allies that want to run with us and complete this journey together? With heightened tension on social media and digital platforms, we can become desensitized to the injustices that have plagued Black folks in our community for years. Unfortunately, there are too many people in our community who are unwilling to take off the lens of their life and put on another lens from somebody else's perspective to gain their experience. Our hope is that you walk away today with a renewed and/or developed compassion for Black folks in our community. Let me be clear. Some of y'all might be offended and be upset right now, and the whole goal is really not to make you uncomfortable, but to make you think differently. There are people that are on this call that I know have reached out to me, that have been in the fight, that have been in the game, that have been in this journey. And you're like, Tyler, I've been in this, and I know you have. So when I'm talking to you, I'm talking about you're just developing. You're personally developing your experience to understand what it is like to understand what Black folks deal with in this community. And for the people that are renewed, you had no idea this even existed. You were clueless, or you just didn't want to really think that this was a thing that we could be living in. And it really is true. So accompanied with that change in your heart, we believe that from storytelling, you will be inspired to become more actively involved in learning how you could be using your influence for impact. This is why we've created this space to listen, to learn, and lead by taking action. Sessions from Van Talks, huge shout out to Kevin, and Ready to Rise have partnered to provide this platform with the Black community members to share their stories of just being Black in Vancouver. This will be uncomfortable dialogue for some, and that's okay. It's not meant to be a cozy conversation. We really need to marinate in the stories of others to gain understanding and love for folks that don't share our same lived experience. You see, this conversation is going to be guided through storytelling, because where definitions fall short, stories can often bring clarity to chaos. These are going to be unfiltered experiences from the truth of 4 Black lives who live, work, and are pillars of change in the Vancouver community. So we ask for the next 80 minutes that you lock in with us. Eliminate distractions. My homie just texted me. He said, are you guys watching the Clippers and Lakers? I said, I can't. I have a bigger commitment. I'm on this call tonight. So cut out your ESPN browser that you probably have popped up. Get off Nordstrom, get off Amazon, close your Netflix accounts. Stop trying to search what's the best show to watch next, and lock in with us. We encourage you to soften your heart, open your ears to listen, so you can learn and take the appropriate action to be a part of the solution for positive change in our community. Thank you for listening to me for the last 7 minutes. It was supposed to be 4. I want to introduce our first speaker. I know Nathan's making the transition right now to share his screen. Without further ado, I want to welcome our first storyteller to the microphone, Mr. Nathan Webster. I've known Nathan for 10 plus years, an incredible, resilient Black man, entrepreneur. Nathan is a social entrepreneur and a marketing professor at Clark College. He grew up in Vancouver. Nathan has a long history of community impact and being a voice of change. Nathan, the floor is yours. Please share your story, my brother.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Kevin. Man, yeah, Tyler, you went a little long. I was like, oh man, because I got so much to say. I only got so much time. And that's the thing. Tyler, thank you for a wonderful introduction. Thank you, Kevin, for creating this space. And thank you all for joining. I'm going to talk about something I would never usually talk about in public, also share it with folks I don't know, I can't see you, and I more than likely probably won't converse this with you. So I wanted to be real and start off by saying, what's that? What's that? What's that? Look, look, look. And it's a lake, right? As a fisherman, I love to go fishing. I love to find a lake. But that's what tokenism is here in Vancouver, Washington. because I've had kids point to me like they ain't never seen a Black person before. So tokenism in Vancouver, Washington is real. With that being said, I want to keep it real, which means I'm going to be honest. So when I was initially approached to talk about whatever my story was, man, I was sad. I was hurt because I wanted to bring some pain because as a Black man, I feel like an endangered species. You see, like when Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown were, I feel targeted and hunted down. I want to talk to you about what it feels like to be Black in suburbia, yet have the privilege of being here, but not feeling embraced and safe. And so I wanted to bring that like to you. And I was like, But then I was like, let me talk to you about also the pain of what it's like catching a case. Only being arrested by stories that are not true. But because I didn't fit the stereotypical box, I'm educated, I'm a veteran, I was a single father at the time. I know what it's like to say, Your Honor, I'm guilty on things that I did not commit. So I have that pain that I wanted to share with you. But earlier last year, my son came to me and said, Dad, I want you to chaperone a field trip. And I was like, son, you know my background's compromised. You know I can't do that. You know what I went through. And I said, you know what? I'm going to apply because I love you. I want you to know that I'm going to do it anyways, just so you know. When it comes back, don't be mad, right? Well, it didn't get denied. So I was there for my son, just like my mom was there for me when I was in elementary, and me and my buddy still reminisce when my mom allowed us to play in the water in the zoo. Now my son, because his teacher asked him to chaperone, I didn't want to let him or his teacher down. But you see, I'm sure when I said my son, you thought of someone different. You see, in my family, we're a little bit different. It doesn't matter the DNA. That's my son. He is following in my footsteps, not just as a Marine, just even now to this day. Right now, as we speak, he is stationed where I was stationed, and it feels enormously wonderful because the pain I want to bring to you, well, I did want to bring to you, was out of a place of victimhood. And to be real, I ain't no one got time for that. I want you to shift your mindset because just like I had to change mine, as people told me, like, Nathan, you're a unicorn, you're different, you're special. But I was not special in the way that I thought. So I want you to do the same. So I came up with 4 tokenism. Number 1, this community is not inclusive. And hey, let's set the record straight. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I just now have an understanding because number 2, we have a lack of leadership. And being uncomfortable is required for you to have these conversations and make a difference. And that starts with some specific economic provisions. So with that intentional framework, I want to start with the definition of tokenism. You see, it just comes down to there's no intentionality of just being a symbolic effort, nothing more. And we're not going to get personal. We just want to see you over there, not here. Earlier this year, I took my younger kids to my church that when I was in Northeast Portland, I grew up in, well, my parents took me, I didn't go to church willingly. And I took them there, and my 9-year-old son, which he is now 10, said what we should be asking all the time, which I say all the time. He said, where's the white people? I started busting up laughing because I was like, you know what, there ain't no white people here. That's not the way we roll in Northeast Portland. No, I was like in the middle of church, so I couldn't like bust up, but I did bust up laughing. And so I was like, son, we got to talk about that afterwards. You see, in his family, we come in all different shades. We come in all different tones, baby. So he felt that it wasn't real because it wasn't what he was used to. And this comes down to our community. It isn't inclusive, but let me tell you, community tokenism is real. See, I've always been the token, baby. I've always been that one ink spot in the bowl of milk. And I can laugh about it, I can joke about it, but I'm just gonna keep it real with you because that's the reality that no matter where I went, guess what? I was the token. No matter how elitist we were doing, I was the token. You know what? And I just got used to it. I got used to it. I said, you know, it is what it is. I'm going to make the best of it. Even when I created a nonprofit, I said, I'm going to make the best of it. But it was getting a little interesting. About 10 years ago, I kept getting some knocks. And at these knocks, it was, that story is interesting. The second knock, that story, it made me think because I was happy to have this office and show people my rejection roll of all the people that denied me the grants and the sponsors and the people that didn't want to donate to my organization. I said, fine, so be it. I'm going to work harder. But then the third knock was the reality that I was the token Black guy because it was the precursor to my 2016. You see, I'm holding up a sign that says, do not give up. But I do know what it's like to want to give up because you see the systemic infrastructure that is here is made you feel like you're inferior and you need to be stuffed in a box. And I asked, like, why do I always got to be the token? Because I wasn't raised this way. Easy. It's leadership, right? It's leadership. No matter where I go, I'm like, where's the Black people at? Where can I find the Black people? That's what I'm asking. No matter where I go, where's the Black people at? And it's like, you know, if the city of Vancouver can go all the way to Japan to get a sister city, I'm like, how come we cannot get a partnership with Howard University? In case you don't know what Howard University is, it is a HBCU. That's a historical Black college and university. And there's more to it. Can't tell it to you right now. Ask me later. But we have General Oliver Otis's Howard's House, one of the founders of Howard University right here in Vancouver. I would have loved to have gone to Howard University because it's like the Stanford and Harvard for HBCUs. We do it with Clark College. We send people to WSU Vancouver with a full ride scholarship. If you want to make change, why not have a scholarship that we can do just right here? But let's be honest. Being uncomfortable, because it's easier to say, just work harder. You can get there too. Don't tell me about working harder. I love to work hard. I have always worked hard. In the Marine Corps, I always achieved to be the best and do what I needed to do to get to that level. I always hung out with thoroughbreds. That's what we called ourselves. You see, my parents gave me a work ethic because my parents are all about grinding. They know nothing less. That's what they're all about. That's what they taught me. My boss was an E7, I was an E4, and when he left, his direct reports answered to me. So that I had E6s and E5s because that's who I was. I didn't know anything else. I knew to work hard. It was all about merit. That's why when I had this organization, I was like, yes, let's do it. Let's make it happen. So when I started my business in 2015, I was all about not having a boss, do the risk, have the reward, have the dependence, quality of life, all that. But when 2016 happened and when it went down, I realized I needed to control my destiny because people were out there trying to tokenize me, stuff and be stuffed in their little tiny box because I didn't fit their reality. And when I tried to get further by getting accredited by the state or certified by the state, there were some things that I even realized that they even suggested, they said, you know what, you're right. We don't do a great job with hiring Black contractors or Indigenous contractors or people of color contractors or women contractors. Even though as a veteran, we don't face the same, but guess what? I can't strip my Blackness away from a veteran because what happens is they continue to say, work hard and you get there. But when I call it out, it gets so frustrating because how come I have to call it out and no one else will? You see, all my life, I've been around white folks. I've been around white folks all my life. Let me say it again. I've been around white folks all my life. I have best friends that are white. As you see, my family, I know what it's like to be, like you see right here, we're in high school. We know how to find each other. But I didn't understand it because I'm used to it because I've been around white folks all my life. You might look at this picture here and you're like, hey, it's a couple of Black guys, but those are guys lived in your community. You might know the guy to the right, his name's Aaron Bibbins. You might know his dad, his name is Charles Bibbins, which took the picture because Charles Bibbins owned Goldie's Barbecue. And we go about our life working hard, doing everything else, but unfortunately, sadly, not everyone was able to live out their life. Because I had my friend Joseph Mason, who was gunned down by a security officer, and his parents won a wrongful death lawsuit. And in that wrongful death lawsuit, man, I apologize because I never again got to see my friend again. I didn't realize that he will be gunned down because he did nothing wrong. And the judge even said, because of the laws, the way they're written, you walk out of here free, even though they were awarded with plenty of money. But that money cannot bring back my friend Joe. So when we talk about money, we talk about these insecurities that are plaguing our community. Eldridge Cleaver said, you're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. You see, I love the water, and so I definitely love the beautiful Vancouver waterfront park. But then I'm like my son, I'm like, whoa, I'm looking for the tokens at least, right? Where are the Black folks? Where are the indigenous? Like, where everybody at? How come I don't find people? So when I moved downtown a year ago, I heard a quote that says the dollar stays in the Black community for only 6 hours. I looked it up. I Googled it, Tyler. I did what you told me to do. I looked it up, and guess what? That's not accurate, but there is some truth that the dollar stays in the white, in the Jewish, and the Asian community for days. But why not a Black community? So I'm like, you know what? Let me go ahead and create that. Let me create a table of my peers locally of people of color, women, and veterans. And that was less than a year ago. And then we took it to the next level and had a happy hour. And you know what? We were having a good time. We said, we're not going to stop doing even COVID. And I said, I can do more. There's more that needs to be done. So I created a website that's for business owners to say, hey, this is what it is. Because in order to stop tokenism, because I'm tired of being the token, I'm tired of being shoved in a box, I realized I'm going to go back to my roots because I have a future generation to look at. You see, when I was a kid, I was blessed, both me and my sister. We just didn't have one backyard. We had 2 backyards. And as you see me in my sling, I was fighting for a Starship Trooper. So I think I won, but I don't remember. But anyways, back to the point. Back in the day, we didn't have a fence until my dad decided to buy a boat because he loves fishing as well. And we still had access to our neighbor's backyard because I believed in our community. We were affluent. We had a BMW. We rode deep. And look at our yard. It's gorgeous. You see, my parents never had that talk with me of what it's like to be Black. And I think they didn't have that talk because of the struggles that they went through. But also, they were here first. They were here when they built this. When you drive down McGilvery and Cascade Park, my dad built that land to where the point to where people came to him, asked, how did you do that? So when you drive down Cascade Park, my dad was an architect of that landscaping. I don't think he wants any credit, but I realized one thing is that we do need to have the talk because just because you were here first, and if you ask the indigenous folks, they'll tell you it don't matter if you're here first because sometimes, let's just say all the time, if you're not saying that's tokenism, who is? So let me give you these action items. Number 1, I don't want your pity. I don't need a shoulder to cry on. I already have people to do that. Number 2, you need to have those uncomfortable conversations amongst yourselves. Please don't allow us to not allow us, but please don't ask us to say, hey, can I talk to you about this? Have them with yourself. Get uncomfortable. There's plenty of movies to watch. Number 3, please buy from Black, indigenous people of color and share the info. If you want to make real systemic change, you got someone in office right now that doesn't believe these things happen, but I guarantee if she was treated the way I was treated in 2015, 2016, and denied some things, I best believe she would change her mind and change what she said. But you know what? Let me leave that alone. And last and not least, number 5, please invest in BIPOC education resources and not try to give them a handout and just say, you can have the leftovers. It's just not, this might not be for you with the trade jobs. They are highly intelligent as well. They just need an opportunity. I thank you for your time. God bless.
Nathan, thank you so much. Real quickly, I know the panel, I know the attendees can't hear me. Panelists, can you hear me? Thank everything in the world, because it just said my audio cut out, so I'm glad it did not. Nathan, brother, I just want to say, first of all, I truly appreciate your story and your experience of being a token in the world of Vancouver. And I think it's very important that folks understand BIPOC. For some of you guys that might be like, what the heck is BIPOC? You on your Google right now, you're trying to look it up. I need to get informed. BIPOC means Black, Indigenous, People of Color. So those are any people that identify as a person of color, indigenous to this America that we live in. So thank you again, Nathan, brother. I always appreciate you. It's been incredible working with you, and I just love to see you continue to grow in the marketing and develop and have influence and impact in our community. And more people need to know about the work you're doing. So I'm glad that you was here with us, bro. No doubt. No doubt. Okay, so next up, I got to tell you how excited I am. So I don't know if Erica knows this, but Erica, you've been on my list of people to connect with for probably a year and a half. So I've been following you on social here for a little while. And I'm just seeing what you're doing and how you're moving. And I'm like, I'm just incredibly impressed. Like, y'all, what was y'all doing at 20 years old? Was y'all fighting for social justice? Was y'all trying to learn how to impact your community? I wasn't. I'm just gonna be transparent with you. I was trying to play basketball and hang out with friends. And I've just watched Erica since I've known her since she was at the Boys and Girls Club, and her brother, this is back when Erica was probably in the 5th, 6th grade. Her brother was like 3rd grader at the time. And I've just always watched her and just been impressed by how she moves in this world. And she's very resilient. She's very powerful, but she's also very soft-spoken from my experience. And maybe she might not say that, but what I've seen is she's very articulate with her words, and she takes the time to think about what she says because she knows her words make a difference. And so I want to introduce Erica. Erica is a recent college graduate from Central Washington. See what? See, whoa! Erica, come on, I know you know. The rest of y'all, if you went to Western, you like, ah, boo, whatever. Central Washington. Anyway, I went there. She's very passionate about supporting and elevating the voices of girls and young women of color who've been impacted by adverse childhood experiences. Again, if you don't know what adverse childhood experiences are, just YouTube the video, Adverse Childhood Experiences. Probably the first video that pops up is an incredible Black young woman doctor leader who talks about what that means. It's a TED Talk. It's probably about 17 minutes long. It'll change your life. She is currently pursuing a master's degree in social justice at San Francisco State University. Huge shout out to Erica, the young one, the wise one. She's gonna deliver y'all some game. Here we go.
Hey everyone, thank you, Tyler. I really appreciate it. Hi everyone, my name is Erica. I'm so honored to be here and be able to share my story with you. The story is not just mine, but it is so many others that look like me. So see me. What do you see when you look at me? Who do you see when you look at me? Does my skin, my gaze, my posture define how you see me? This is my story. This is our story. My family and I moved to Vancouver from San Diego when I was 2 years old. At that age, I didn't realize what it meant to be that 2% of the residents that looked like me. But it didn't take me long to figure out what it meant to be that 2%. There's a saying, if you can see the world through the eyes of a child, you can see the magic in everything. Far too often, the world, even through the eyes of a child, doesn't seem that magical. In elementary school, I was often the only person of color in class. I felt alone. In 2nd grade, while in the room, a white student told me that he couldn't play with me because my skin looked dirty. I felt dirty. In middle school, a white classmate called me the N-word on the school bus. I felt very angry. My brother, in his 3rd grade, he had a teacher that he had a project to do. The teacher just told him to pick a country after Joshua told him that he doesn't know what part of the country his family is from. We felt like orphans. Imagine, like, how can someone just tell somebody that? So here's some photos of some friends and I from high school. We're often seen as defiant and disruptive. We were those folks that sat at that quote unquote black table, and we owned it. We were often only valued for our athleticism or our artistic blends, but yet little did they know that we were leaders of the school. We were ASB members, we were class presidents, we were secretaries, we were also trendsetters. People don't know who went to Hudson's Bay. Our table was always the table that had the music playing and always having a great time. Dr. Monique Morris, educator, civil rights activist, and social justice leader of her book Push Out, The Criminalization of Black Girls in School, found out that Black girls are often defined and labeled and suspended for being defiant and disruptive. If asked questions or otherwise engaged in activities that adults considered affronts to their authorities. How do you label us? This is story time. So one high school, every time a white student would get into a fight, they often had the security guards just handle it. This time, all the time. When Black folks get into altercations or even just simple verbal altercations, they would just simply call the Vancouver police. My junior year in high school, I was very passionate about this situation. I confronted the principal, the police officer, and also the athletic director at the time. I admitted I was pretty upset. In this time, I addressed the frustration I had and also the inequalities that I was seeing. Later that day, the principal and I, we scheduled a meeting with my mother and the officer the next day to discuss my concerns. The officer arrived to the meeting. He later stated that he wanted to see what type of parent I had. Little did you know that my mother, she is the finest of all parents that you can have. He discussed that he wanted to see what type of parent I had, to discuss if I was gonna get arrested that day. Was taking a note. I had a verbal discussion with this person, nothing at all that was physical. This same person, this school police officer, is now running for Washington State Senate seat. I wonder who. Take a wild guess. Further into the conversation, my mother explained the additional inequalities that she saw at the school. She asked the principal if she knew what Black Student Union meant on campus. That principal stated that she did not know what that meant. Let's take it a note. This was 2015. That principal is still at this high school. I represent these numbers, these statistics. Black girls are 24% of girls expelled with or without educational services. 42% of girls that are later are only have least out of school suspension. 31% of girls referred to law enforcement, and 34% of girls arrested on campus. This is by Dr. Monique Morris. How do you see me? Throughout middle school and high school, I was on IEP. No shame in that. This took me and allowed me to have more time to take tests and assignments. Part of my IEP, we usually met annually with my mother. This time around my senior year, my mother and I had a meeting. In this meeting, I was asked to provide resources that were available in the Vancouver area which includes subsidized housing, food assistance, food banks, and etc. During this meeting, I also discussed how I had desires to attend a four-year university. But the folks decided that they thought that I should start at a community college rather than looking at a four-year university, because they didn't think a student like me would be successful and they didn't want to set me up for failure. Little did they know, I'm graduating from Central Washington University. So in this situation, change the narrative. Be culturally responsive. Include culturally specific references in teaching and engaging in advanced learning. Be trauma informed. Recognize and respond to the impacts of trauma and toxic stress in a young person's life. Recognize your biases. Check them at the door. And always assume good intentions. And also recognize your privilege. Listen and learn from folks whose experiences are different than yours. Be an ally. These folks in this photo, you see photos right here. These were my allies. These were my coaches, Coach Phoebe and Coach Peterson, really dear to my heart. These folks, they fought for me when I was at my lowest. These folks were my teachers, my coaches, my vice principal. These were my allies. So to be an ally, be a supportive adult. Get included. Get involved. Amplify the voices of those that are already oppressed before your own. That's how you can be an ally. So you're wondering, who am I? I am Erica Wings. I attended Hudson's Bay High School, later where I attended San Francisco, later I attended Central Washington University on scholarship, only starting at a 20%, later where I ended my freshman year with full ride scholarship. I ended that with a full ride scholarship because I proved through my athleticism and my grades. These folks, they truly believed in me. During my time at Central, I accomplished many athletic accolades. And this is where I also found my passion after taking a women and gender studies class. Throughout the years, I built confidence and found my passion in addressing issues that I was very passionate about. Young girls and women and gender equality. Great time there. Throughout this time, my passion and also my social capital opened so many doors for me. Later, where I found that I was going to attend San Francisco State to focus on a social justice and equity master's degree, where I'll also continue my focus with National Crittenton as an intern in the fall. And lastly, hopefully I don't overwhelm you, I also run track at San Francisco State for my last year on full ride scholarship, paying for my first year of master's. Glory be to God. I'm a hurdler. It's what I do strategically as I jump over the obstacles set before me. At the same time, these hurdles do not define me. It's how I make up the critical parts of the race, and that is what is most important. And it's mostly important that how I run that race and how I finish it. And I'm here to finish and continue on. Through my passion and also through the folks that are able to support me, and through Black Lives Matter, Me Too, this is my story. I am an activist of my community. I will continue to advocate for and with girls and young women who have experiences just like my own. Thank you for listening. I hope you take something very valuable from this and continue to listen to those that come from this experience and listen to our stories. Thank you.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? Erica, again, I value your experiences, what you've been through, and how hard you've worked to get to where you're at. You are an inspiration to us all. Young lady, you are leading like nobody's business.
Thank you.
Keep getting down in the trenches and doing what it takes to make true impact. Girl, we appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely, 100%.
Obviously,
Everybody's
people.
I
Stay
hear
black,
that.
stay beautiful, as I say.
Stay beautiful. I hear that, girl. So we got to pivot. Okay? Listen, it's my fault. I will take the blame. I talked for 10 minutes. It was supposed to be for 4 minutes. We're a little over in time. So what I'm going to do, Kev, I'm actually going to share my story right now. And Rashida Willard, who's just a leader in herself, she's going to finish us out with her talk. She's going to, I'm going to do my story a little bit here, share with you for a few minutes. Then Rashida's going to share her story. Then we're going to play that video from her, and then we're going to wrap up. So I would just encourage you this. I'm going to be transparent with y'all. Y'all ain't got nothing to do at 8 o'clock tonight. Let's be real. What y'all doing? Like, hey guys, get the s'mores going, get the popcorn going. Like, y'all ain't got nothing to do. So stay with us until like 8:10, not 10:10, that's way too long. 8:10, and we'll finish up by then because we ran a little bit over time, and that's just beautiful because people are sharing their stories and their hearts. And again, I ran over and I told my folks when we was practicing this, I'm gonna go over. I'm just gonna be transparent with you. So thank y'all for y'all grace. I love y'all. So Kevin, if you can give me the ability to share my screen, I am ready for you, my brother. All right, let me present this. Okay, I just want to check with my panelists. Can you all see that? Okay, it'd be really weird for me to read my bio and introduction. You can read that as you choose. So any questions, again, we've been getting some questions in here, some really deep questions that I feel like a lot of these questions that we've got so far, they're great questions, but they're more individualized to like, I mean, you know, I don't, they're great questions, don't get me wrong, but we're trying to get something that's more general that can help the group as a whole. So keep those questions coming. I'm not trying to minimize all the questions you've sent so far, but keep them coming. And the number to text is right there, 360-524-4028. Okay, here we go. I'm ready to dive in. So to be transparent with you, I speak quite a bit, and typically I speak for 60 to 90 minutes. We're gonna try to get this into like 8. Panelists, keep me accountable. Text me, you got my number, my phone's right here. So here we go. On the left hand, we insulated. On the left side, we kind of feel isolated. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story from the genesis, from the beginning. So I'm biracial. If you can't tell, I'm very light skinned. I know I got the ring light hitting on me right now. Maybe making me look like a different color. Anyways, I'm biracial. My mother is white. She was born into the Mormon regime. I would say the regime, the culture, or the religion, whatever you want to call it. And she was kind of an outcast. Everybody else in my family, my aunties and my uncles, were incredibly wealthy as they grew up, had incredible lives as far as financially being successful. My mom was kind of the black sheep, was sent off to Portland, Oregon, because she was kind of doing things that folks wasn't really vibing with. This is not a knock to my grandfather, who was the principal of the high school where my mother went in Eastern Oregon. It was just the way that they kind of lived back then. And she was sent to Portland, Oregon. She met my father, Eugene Monk Jr., and they had me and my sister. My sister is 13 months older than me. She is a pillar of strength. If anybody on this call knows my sister, she's fighting a battle right now with cancer, and she's the strongest woman that I know. And I don't want to get emotional on this call because we might go into like 30 minutes of me speaking, but I love her to death. And if you pray, or if you just keep people in thoughts, or your energy, however you vibe with that, please keep my sister, Melissa Monk, in your thoughts. So I'm insulated over here. Look at, you see all my cutties? Look at my cousins. My cousin Mike, my cousin Sherelle. My sister never, look, you see my mouse? My sister never looks at the camera, y'all. I'm like, sis, look at the camera. What are you doing? I feel insulated here. So I'm biracial, but I've always identified with Black culture because that's what I resonated with. That's what I identified with. You would never see me on the streets and be like, look at that white dude. No matter how fair complexion my skin is, look at my hair. Look at the, probably just my hair. My texture is pretty white. I'm very light skinned. But I was insulated in that community. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, which a lot of you don't know. A lot of you know this, that Portland is the whitest city in America as far as metropolitan cities. Something like 78% white folks. But what you don't know is I grew up in, just like Rashida, and I don't want to steal her thunder because she's going to share, we grew up in a similar community where the folks that we grew up around was all minorities, Black folks. So all of my homies was Black folks. My family was Black folks. I went to a black middle school. I went to a school that was high school that was incredibly diverse. And so I felt insulated with my community and I felt accepted. I didn't feel like I had to be somebody else. I didn't feel like I had to code switch. If you don't know what code switch is, look that up again. That's your responsibility. But then sometimes with my white family, who were all Mormons, who were incredible people, my cousin Wyatt right here with his babies and my cousin Joe with his babies, I love these people just like I love my black family, but I felt a little different, like I had to move a little bit different because I didn't feel like they understood my lingo, or they didn't understand my culture necessarily, but they loved it. So my message to you is, listen to me right now. How many of you love black culture? You love black culture, music, dancing, the way we dress, the way we move, the way we articulate, but you don't have that same energy when it comes to black people. I want you to analyze your situation in that. Here I am. I want to share with you, because here's what I know. I got a ton of students that I'm working with right now. They're on this call. So I'm speaking to them like I'm speaking to white folks that are just trying to learn and understand what is going on. I believe there's two things going on in our society. There is fault, and then there is responsibility. So let's dive in. No judgment here, y'all. Come on, please. This is me with my mom. This is my mama, Ellen. This is my sister, Melissa. And these are my grades from freshman year of high school at Benson Tech. Some of y'all might be like, how in the hell is this dude qualified to be on this call? Bruh, this dude had 0.2. I had 24 grades, freshman year, and I had 26 grades, 24 Fs. I was failing everything that you could find under the sun. And a lot of this had to deal with the responsibility that I took for personally making the decision to make myself the best possible version that I could be of who I wanted to be. And my dad asked me a question. There's a huge story that I share every time I do a first workshop. It's called What's Your Why and Why It Matters. And I talk about my dad slapping me across the face, taking me to Denny's and asking me, Tyler, what do you want to do with your life? Who do you want to be? And I said, Daddy, man, I want to be a basketball player. He said, son, what's the first thing you got to do to be able to do that? I said, Dad, well, shoot, I got cut from the team this year. You know, I wasn't very good and my grades are failing, so I can't even play on the team if I wanted. He said, well, what do you have to do to make that team? I said, Dad, I had to do things I don't want to do to be able to get the things that I actually want in life. The school system was not made for me. I was incredibly creative. I did not think in a box. So the traditional school system did not work for me. And I always thought that I was less than my counterparts. White people, black people, Asian, didn't matter. I always thought that I was less than. Excuse me, I hit my table. But what I realized was I had incredible potential within me, but nobody ever brought that out. And until my dad had a conversation with me when I was 14, he slapped the mess out of me. I thought this dude was gonna kill me. Literally, I thought he was gonna drop me off in the Columbia River. It didn't happen. Obviously, I'm here today. And he said, Tyler, I believe in you so much. We both over here ugly crying. Let me show you what an ugly cry is. No words coming out. And then obviously like 10 seconds later, you like, and then you sound like you beatboxing, like, Mommy, but daddy, I just like, and I said, Daddy, why'd you slap me? He said, son, because I believe in you and I love you. And you need to make something of yourself. So I made a decision to be something more than what I was based on my circumstances. I grew up in poverty. I grew up in domestic violence. I grew up with a mother that was absent. But I relied on my father who was there. So for those folks that are here and think the narrative is like, well, the reason that black folks are struggling because the black fathers ain't in the home. Well, if the statistics show you one thing, the facts will show you another. There are black fathers that are in their homes that are supporting their sons. I got a big old picture of my kids right now. I'm here for my sons. I'm here for my daughters. I got 3 daughters and 1 son. And I'm here for that, to transform what has been the narrative for so long. So this is speaking right now to the young people that are on this call. There's a difference between fault and your responsibility. And white folks, listen to this too. It is not your fault that your ancestors took people from a continent to bring them over here into slavery, to take away their humanity, their decency. That is not your fault. But you best believe it is your responsibility to change the narrative and be a part of the solution instead of sitting back and being like, well, you know, like, I mean, whatever I can do, I'll attend this, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion training. No, that ain't good enough. We need y'all to raise hands and say, I'm in the fight with y'all. I'm here with y'all. Sorry, trying to go to my next page. Don't know how to do it really. Here we go. So here's the transition. So y'all seen oh, sorry, I don't know if y'all seen that. This always happens, you guys. I'm gonna be totally transparent with you. What are you guys seeing right now as panelists? Okay, here we go. Guys, listen, I've done so many of these calls. Please have some grace with me. That happens every time I try to transition. So this right here, you see this white man right here with the underdog mentality? That's my business, that's my brand, that's my story, inspirational storytelling speaking business. This man right here is the principal. Freshman year of high school, I got suspended 3 times freshman year. One time I got suspended for fighting the teacher, don't judge me. Next time I got suspended for wearing a do-rag, I'm about the culture. I'm just trying to get these waves, y'all. You feel me? And the next time I got suspended because I wore hoop shorts under my jeans. And anybody that knows, folks that are basketball players, bruh, you got to be ready at any moment to be able to play basketball. And I'm ready. And I got suspended for that. But this gentleman right here was our associate principal. And every time I sat down with Alex Odenpaul, who was the principal of Columbia River, I love this dude. He treated me with love and care and respect as a human. He did not judge me off a stereotype or basically what he thought I was. He looked at me as a human and said, Tyler, I know you got great potential, but you're not living up to that. And I got to hold you accountable, because if I don't hold you accountable, you're going to fall prey to the situations of your environment that provoke the things that you are currently doing. And at the time, I was like, man, forget this white dude. I ain't trying to listen to him, bro. Whatever. Give me my time. I'll come back in 2 weeks. I'm here. Interesting enough, this is what happened. This right here is a picture of me and the diversity team of the young, beautiful women. And I don't see no dudes here. I got a problem with my dudes. Listen, if you on this call, I got a problem with my dudes. Listen, young dudes, if you in high school and you in college, you on this call, listen to me. Y'all need to step the hell up. Excuse my language. Hopefully I'm not offending nobody. All these young women are stepping up and they're leading in the realm of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Where are my fellas? We need y'all. And these young, beautiful women, oh, let me go back. Sorry. Look, I don't know what I'm doing. Here we go. These young, beautiful women came and they said, we want to have you come speak. I shared my story. And this woman here, this young, beautiful chocolate lady here on the right-hand side, she said, Tyler, we had a session after this. So I did a little keynote speak to the whole entire student, at Columbia River. It was about 1,200 students. This was the second time in the history. This is 2020, y'all, January. The second time they've ever had anybody, a person of color, come speak about Martin Luther King and honoring his legacy. And this black young woman right here on the far right said, Tyler, just 2 weeks ago, I had a student tell me that I look like a monkey, that I don't belong here, that I need to go back to my country. And I almost came in tears. I said, let me talk to you right now. You are a beautiful young black woman. Their opinion and perspectives has not become your reality. They're uninformed, they're uneducated. Racism is taught. Let me backtrack. Racism is caught. What are you doing as a white person to teach your young family, your kids, the population that you spend time with? Because it is caught more than taught. And I said, do not worry about that. Do what you can do to create change. It's an unfortunate situation. It's going to be perpetuated, but individual racism is really not the problem in my heart. It's the structural and the systemic racism, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. Here we go. So a story of implicit bias. Implicit bias exists when people unconsciously hold attitudes toward others or associate stereotypes with them. I was asked to speak at a high school in Vancouver, Washington, East Vancouver. I'm not going to name no names because I believe the folks that are in leadership right now and the folks that are counselors and doing the work truly believe in change and are infuriated with the past society that has perpetuated that community. So I'm not going to name that. I got asked to come speak to the school. Interesting enough, I was in Leadership Clark County, which is an institution to help develop leaders in our community, civil leaders, business leaders, educational leaders. And this is not a knock on Leadership Clark County. I know that there's probably the director, Sherry, shout out to you, Sherry, if you're listening, and other people that are on this call. This is no knock at y'all. I love y'all. And we've had these conversations at 3 a.m., maybe over a glass of whiskey or not. I'm not gonna say. to talk about true change that we can have in our community. And what I realized was, as a person of color, a Black man, I stepped in a room for the first time, and out of 40 people, I was the only Black person in the room. Matter of fact, I was the only of 2 people of color in the room. I had people come up to me and tell me, Tyler, you know what? Implicit bias. Tyler, you know what? I got to introduce you to so-and-so because you speak so eloquently. You're so articulate. And I was like, interesting. Do you ever tell white folks that speak after, like, they're so articulate and the way they dropped the message was so inspiring? Interesting. But specifically with this situation, I had students come after me after my spoken word and my session that I did with them, and they told me, Tyler, you are the first Black man, teachers and students. You're the first Black man I've heard come and speak at this school. It's 2020. This teacher told me this, and I'll end with this. The teacher came up, he didn't tell me this, but I listened to his story. He came on before me, right before me. He said, I came here in 2010, 10 years ago. He said, when I came here, I asked the question in the staff meeting, hey guys, so it's February coming up. You know, what do we do for Black History Month? What do we do to honor Dr. Martin Luther King? And he looked around the staff, and this is what they said. You know what? That's a good question. We don't really do anything. And then one teacher said, no, guys, no. We do something. He said, well, what's that? He's excited, a white teacher. He said, what's that? He said, we do something called a slave auction. 2010, slave auction. The white teacher, who there's no other Black teachers, there's no other students, teachers of color, looks around the room. And the white teacher says, huh, what do you guys do? And this is the first time the white teacher realized their implicit bias and said, you know what? That's probably not a good idea. We probably shouldn't be doing that. He said, yeah, you probably shouldn't. A slave auction in 2010. Now, over 90% of these students were predominantly white. But how do you think that makes the Black students feel? If you can't see it on this stage, I'm trying to show my little cursor. There's a Black student right here. There's a Latino student right here. And on this far left, there's a Black student who she told me, KJ, she said, Tyler, the next time I came and I visited with the principal, because I believe that true change and success is a process, not an event. She said, Tyler, I just did the, after your session, it was great, but then I was on the bus and the student came up to me, he said, I don't sit by Black people. You need to go to the back. You need to move. You need to move to the back. This was reported to leadership. From her experience, I didn't talk to leadership. From her experiences, nothing was really done of that. You guys, so when you think of that, systemic racism doesn't exist. When you think that people are not judging people by the color of their skin versus the content of their character, you are fooled, and you are not listening to the stories of Black folks. Now, I want to be transparent with you. I shared other people's stories versus mine because these are the young people that are living these experiences right now, and that's who I represent. That's the work that I do. So you need to check your perspective. You need to dive deeper to understand your empathy, and you need to grow and listen to learn so you can actually take action. Thank you for your time. Okay. So we are ready for the most highly woman who is going to share her story with you. Here's the deal. I've known Rashida now for several months, and she looks younger and younger every time I see her. Can't believe your children are as old as they are. You look incredibly young. And she has a perspective that is so rich, but will pull you in, even if you feel like, man, I don't agree with nothing they be talking about. Like, I'm on the whatever, man. This is all. People are complaining. This is not really what's going on. She's going to shed light to why this is actually going on in our community right now. And you need to listen better than you've ever listened before. So Rashida is the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Clark College. Throughout her career, she went to the next page. Throughout her career, thanks, Rashida. Throughout her career, she has been able to develop and oversee initiatives that help promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. In the community, she is an advocate for historical events in working with underserved communities. Rashida, the floor is yours. Please share your story with us.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank y'all all for being here today. Tyler, I think you did a little bit of too much hyping me up, so I gotta bring it. Anyway, my name is Rashida Willard. I use she and her pronouns, and I'll be telling my story to you all today about what it's like, what I think it's like to be Black in Vancouver. I first want to give honor to the women whose shoulders that I stand on. I like to say their names and bring them in the room with me. So my mom, Esther, my grandma, Gloria, my other grandmother, Maddie, and my great-grandma, Mildred Goggin. And they all represent everything that I try to embody, which is equity, justice, activism, advocacy, and community. So I just want to bring them in the room and say their names. I grew up in Portland, Northeast Portland, across the river, pre-gentrification Northeast Portland. So the first picture on the left is the Black Educational Center. That was my elementary school. My grandmother was a teacher and an administrator there, and it was there that I learned how to be unapologetically Black and proud. You'll also see some other important landmarks from Old Portland that are rarely seen today. Geneva's on MLK, Joe's Place. I'm from cookouts and church ladies and aunties sitting on the porch watching for trouble. To me, Northeast Portland represented community. Even though it was segregated, I could always be me in Northeast Portland. I didn't have to pretend, I didn't have to put on a mask. I knew that I could find community. It meant representation. I knew that I would find the ham hocks that my grandmother sent me to the store for. I would find hair for my braids, and cultural festivals like Kwanzaa and Black History Month and Juneteenth. Northeast Portland also represented safety for me, because I knew that even though our neighborhood was riddled with gangs, if I wasn't a gang member, I didn't have to worry about it. And then also, I had the aunties who was sitting on the porch ready to slap a gang member upside the head if they were getting out of line. So I didn't have to worry about that. I worried more about my boundaries. As a Black person, there were certain neighborhoods that were off limits if you were Black. So I didn't leave Northeast Portland. My neighborhood represented pride. It wasn't perfect, but it was my community. And like Tyler said, I literally lived in the whitest big city in America, but I didn't know it. I moved to Vancouver in 2005 because I was priced out. I bought a little home, 912 square feet in Portland in 1998. And my husband and I had 3 little kids. 2 of them were our boys, and we only had 1 bathroom. So listen, I had to move. I'm not sharing a bathroom with my boys. So I needed a bigger home. Portland was becoming gentrified and the prices were becoming outrageous. So we moved across the river to Vancouver. But when I moved here, I was like, okay, where's the Black community? And I learned that there actually isn't a specific Black community. So I created that for myself. But I had questions. Where am I gonna get my hair done? Where do I get hair products? Why doesn't Safeway carry greens? Where can I get soul food that I don't have to cook myself? Where will I feel safe? Where are my children gonna go to school? These are all things that you have to think about being Black in Vancouver. Living in Vancouver, there's always some tone policing that's happening. So what that means is in my workplace, in my interactions with people, I'm constantly checking my tone. I'm a Black woman. I've said that a few times. Like Tyler said, Tyler said he's biracial because he light skinned. Well, I'm Black mixed with Black, but my melanin is not really popping right now. But I'm a Black woman. If I'm not tone policing myself, somebody is doing it for me. They're attributing attitudes and anger to the things that I say, even if that's not my true sentiment. When I'm around people that look like me in my community, I don't have to necessarily do that, walk on those eggshells, because for the most part, people get me. I don't fall into stereotype threat, and I don't think that they're gonna attribute anger or attitude to my tone. So I feel like I can kind of let my hair down or let my fro out, as I would say also. Some of the microaggressions that I've faced in Vancouver are everyday occurrences, and they're not unique to just me. Like Erica said, this is the story of all of us. I'm sure many Black and brown folks on this call can relate. I've gone to Target and the cashier asked me to grab my child because he's running around the store. I had to tell the cashier that my son was with me, and at the time he was 18. Twice at the movies when I was purchasing a ticket for my daughter and I, the ticket person at the ticket booth asked me if I was paying for the kid who was playing video games in the corner. I have to gently remind people that I don't own all the Black kids in Vancouver. Those are not my kids. There's multiple times that the cashier at the grocery store asked me if I was going to use my EBT card. And I'm sure that they never asked that to anybody else. And at the time when there was a time where I went to pick up my daughter from her predominantly white school, and the secretary asked me if I was sure I had the right school, as if I don't know where my daughter goes to school. There was a time recently when I went to make a very large purchase for my home, and before I could even hand the cashier my card, she asked me if I foresee any issues with the purchase not going through. I was like, come again? What do you mean? She said, is there enough money on this card? Most recently, when I was applying for a job for which I was very qualified for, my experience and my education was very publicly questioned and discredited. It was humiliating and dehumanizing. All of these experiences, while in isolation, they're not very big issues in and of themselves, but when they accumulate, the more you have to defend your very existence, that's where you become angry and tired and sick. You have to remember to make sure you make your face up and dress nicely so the doctor doesn't think you neglect your kids. Keep your hands out your pocket when you go into the store so they don't think you've stolen anything. Smile when you walk into a room, neutralize the threat. Wear your hair straight for the interview, neutralize the threat. Take down any semblance of your culture when you're selling your house so that people don't make assumptions. My brother-in-law, who's in the Air Force, he put military license plates on all of their cars because driving while Black. Neutralize the threat. Microaggressions, discrimination, and bias becomes a disease and it infiltrates every part of your life. I start to wonder where I belong. Where can I buy a house? Where can I go hiking? Y'all, I don't go hiking, but I do wonder where. Where will my kids go to school? Is there staff of color? Is there teachers of color? What organizations will I belong to? In 2005, I moved from my home into another house in 2014 because we wanted a little bit more space. In 2016, I found this on a fence next to my home. I already had faced unimaginable racism, so this was like a cherry on top. I went to our neighborhood Facebook page and I said, hey, you know what? But this was put on a fence next to my house. Based on all of my experiences, I'm wondering if this was meant for me and my family. What are your thoughts? Can we get together? Can we clean this up? What should I do? Because I don't feel safe. Well, these are actually screenshots. I cut and pasted them onto here from the Facebook post. My request for accountability was met with gaslighting, making fun of, making light of. It was a whole lot of joking around. And why are you upset? Make America great again. Why can't we just go back to when people of color suffered in silence? The message that it sent me was my pain was not relevant. But you know what? You already know this. Black, Indigenous, people of color have been telling their stories and people have continued to listen. When I was asked to do this story, I was kind of unsure because on one hand, I love storytelling. I love educating people. It is my job, it's what I do. But on another hand, Black, Indigenous, people of color have always put their pain on display for the consumption of folks that may not have any intention of even holding the story or introspectively doing the work that needs to be done. So when stories are told, it's generally met with statements such as, why are you being so sensitive? Why are you being divisive? Or this one really irritates me. I don't care if you're black, purple, red, or green. I just see people as people. And I wish, please don't ever say that again. I hate it so much. There are no green or purple people. When you see me and you see me for who I am, which is a Black woman, you see my pain and my struggle, but you also see my pride. Clark County Council Chair Eileen Queering, she just recently said, I do not agree that we have systemic racism in our county, period. If we can't even admit that there's a problem, if we're all going to be colorblind and not be divisive, we can't even have the conversation. How are we going to fix it? So I'm loving this allyship that's happening right now, and I can't say whether it's performative or not because that's not my place. I don't know your heart. But what I'm appreciating is how white folks are starting to kind of wake up and use their bodies to stand with BIPOC folks. However, this work has to center Black lives. People have started to put the focus now on the allies and not the issue, which is the Black lives. So what I need from our allies is to turn that narrative back to the true issue at hand. It's a really good conversation to have. It's the start of a conversation about the disposable nature of the Black body. We not only have to have this conversation, but there's got to be action after the protest, after the hype dies down. There's going to be more Trayvon Martins, more Mike Browns, more Breonna Taylors, Ahmaud Arbery's, and George Floyd's. But what will be your action then? In general, I hope that we would have a proverbial wall of moms when Black children are being disproportionately sent out of the classroom and disciplined more harshly than white kids. Will there be a proverbial dad with leaf blowers when Black men and boys are disproportionately harassed, more harshly sentenced, and are the victims of police brutality? Will there be a proverbial raging grannies when Black girls' bodies are being over-sexualized and Black trans women are being murdered as if their lives are disposable? There has to be a proverbial naked Athena when Black women die disproportionately giving birth because no one believes their pain. I'm one that appreciates all that's happening, and I truly see these movements leading to real change. So don't get me wrong, I'm not dissing them at all. However, I need to see folks do this work when the camera's not rolling and when they're not receiving national attention. I need it to become second nature for people to speak up, put their careers, their relationships on the line, and stand up for something bigger than themselves, because silence is no longer okay. I want you to move from these stories. It's so easy to stay in a listening space. I want you to move away from listening to hearing and from hearing to action. So what's next? I want to challenge y'all to do your part to move to action. It's not enough to be a good person, but then ignore systemic racism that's happening in the community. When you hear someone telling their story, listen, educate yourself. I know sometimes it feels overwhelming, but you got to start somewhere. One way is to lift up BIPOC voices. When you see something inequitable, say something. The worst thing you can do is ask BIPOC folks to do the work for you. I had someone recently ask me, how will I know if you won't teach me? Don't do that. I challenge you all to lean in. I have some resources on this page. It's a bunch of books, and then other resources, and there's other resources on the Van Talks page, but simple Google searches will work, like Tyler said, a simple Google search. That's all you have to do. But I just want to thank you all for coming, and thank you for listening to my story today.
Rashida, you are a powerful speaker. I truly appreciate you sharing those real tangible experiences that I know can impact folks to really change their heart. And like you said, I think it's the responsibility also. If not coming at you, I'm not coming for next. I'm not coming for y'all. Well, we got some text messages with stuff you could easily do a little bit of research on yourself. Because like Rashida said, she works in this space, guys. So to be transparent with you, when Kevin reached out to me to do this, I don't necessarily like teach diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings. I work with my young folks. I work with the partner colleges and universities and organizations that I work with. But that's not really been my lens. Rashida's done this for a while. You know, she has education behind this, right? And folks, Black folks especially, are exhausted with always having to be the ones that educate are people that are just not up to snuff with understanding what's going on. So that's really your responsibility as an adult, as a person that really is on this call, to try to understand the impact and influence that the things that have been perpetuated in our society for years, that is your responsibility to go learn. That doesn't mean we're not willing to answer questions. That does not mean we're not willing to, run alongside you. But we've been running this race for a minute. Like Rashida's running like 4-minute miles right now, y'all. You understand what I'm saying? Like, she's been in this game. So step your game up, do your own research, and lean in with us. So what we want to do now, I'm very excited. Questions are coming in. They're coming in, right? Very exciting. So I just want to be mindful of time. I always am respectful of time. What I know is there's going to be a portion of you probably that logs off at 8 o'clock because you're strictly a time person and you want to log off at 8 o'clock. Totally fine. No judgment at all, right? But there's going to be some people that are going to lean in with us a little longer because, when we did this at first, we were going to do it for 60 minutes. And we like, yeah, Kevin was like, that's not enough. Let's do it for 90 minutes. But then when I talk way over time, now we're looking at 6 minutes for the panel. And we don't want to leave it at that. So what I want to do is I want to open it up to the panel. And I'm just going to ask them questions and kind of get their thoughts on things and see where they're at. So first question I want to ask, and this is open to the panel. And what I will do is, for the folks that are listening, I'm going to open this up to the panel, but then I'm going to open it up to anybody. And then if anybody else wants to elaborate or share their perspective, because again, I want to say this, I want to reiterate this. I don't know if it's been said. You have 4 Black folks that are sharing their experiences right here. We do not speak for all Black folks. Do you understand what I'm talking about? We all have our own lived experience. So with that being said, the first question that I have for anybody that wants to start out or open it up, what do you think is the biggest mistake that white allies make? It's a good question. Anybody?
I'll talk.
I was like, we got a lot of leaders here. Don't nobody want to be selfish. Selfish. Rashida, kill it.
Yeah. So okay, I'll say this in a way that's trying to be respectful too.
Remember, this is our brave space and not a safe. We gotta make sure that
I get it.
say what we gotta say.
Okay, I see you, Erica.
Go ahead, Erica. Let's see.
Like, don't center yourself. That is the biggest thing for me. Do not center yourself in your allyship. If you're truly an ally, you're going to do it, like I said, when the cameras are not rolling. You're going to do it when nobody is watching. You're going to do it when we're in a meeting and you hear what somebody just said and you just decide to not say nothing, or you see how that teacher is treating that young little boy or that young Black girl. You see what's happening. And so true allyship is, what are you doing when nobody is watching? That's my thought.
I'll just say they don't want to take ownership and say, like, I effed up, basically. I try not, I don't, well, I say I don't curse, but sometimes I do. And it just comes down to where, just say you messed up and just say, like, I could contribute to that. Just like in my experience, I did not one person in the agency, that both from the City of Vancouver Police Department, nor the CPS, not one person of color did they see. And every time I try to explain my situation to them, they were like, I've never heard of that. Like, I don't get it. It doesn't, what do you mean by that? And well, anyways, we are going to continue on the path that we're going to take that we know of. And so I think in my experience, before that, I was like, I drank the Kool-Aid of, it'll be all right. We work hard. We can get there together. But in my experience, what white people want to do in their allyship is when they don't understand something, they just revert back versus say, look, I need to stop everything, do some research, come back, rather than just say, it doesn't matter to me because it doesn't impact my life.
I'll say one word. I'd say assumption rather than education.
Erica with the bomb. I would say this. The one thing that I've seen is, again, it comes to the story that I shared. There's a difference between fault and responsibility. I think a lot of the times, white folks, allies get uncomfortable because they're like, well, I'm trying to do the work, but I'm not the one to blame. And whatever you think in that situation, obviously, it's not your fault if you exist in this world today. You were not a part of slavery, Jim Crow, all that. But it's your responsibility, number one, to educate yourself on truth, right? There is a lot of misinformation out there on social media. Like, you have to do your true digging. And then once you do that digging, do more of what we just done today and just ask Black folks' experiences. I think that is what is completely lacking, a lack of proximity, right? When you have proximity and you're close to somebody, that's what I love about sports. You play on a team and you got people from all around the world playing on the team, and they can relate because there's a common goal and they understand those people's stories. So you just got to listen more to people's stories, kind of put your thoughts aside, and then just listen. So the next question we have, oh, sorry, I just missed it. Doing this in text. So as a panelist, the panelists we suggested, oh my gosh, texts are coming through and threw me off. There we are. Okay, if y'all don't stop texting when I'm trying to read this question right now. Okay, how folks that are having difficulty identifying systemic racism in Clark County, i.e. leaders in our county, how do we begin to see it? How do we begin to address and actually identify, hey, that's systemic racism? Like, if maybe you want to give an example or just an analogy of how it persists and it goes on. I know we've all kind of shared different things in our stories, but if somebody wants to allude to that right now, I'd love it.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
I'll say this real fast. So I wanted to move into I have a 2-bedroom apartment, and I wanted to move into like a 3, maybe 4, because I'm not quite sure about home ownership per se. Yeah, I know, that's how I'm gonna start. But anyway, I wanted to go into get a new apartment this year, and had to check the box that I had a background, and guess what? It came back. They denied it, my application, because I had a criminal background. And so this is where it's a misdemeanor, but I still was denied. So systemic racism comes in where when you have been compromised, the infrastructure for you to have housing, one of the first things that we all need, because I'm sitting in my office right now, but right now I technically can't move to, it was a luxury apartment unit. I would not get approved. So that's one thing to think about, starting with, do you have access to just a basic house, a basic home? And more than likely, people that are affected in regards to the systemic parts, to where you can make a change, you can make a difference. Those are the things that it's up to some of our elected leaders and people that are benefiting financially from it. They can change it, but those are the people that need to go push upward and say, hey, what are your policies around this? HOAs too, that's another thing. HOAs, especially for homes too.
I was going to say, just recently, last year, I believe, there was an article that came out about Vancouver School District and their disparate discipline data. Their discipline rates were higher for students of color and students with disabilities. That's systemic racism.
Sorry, guys, I had my thing on mute and I was reading the questions. Thank you.
I was one more thing out there. So the Port of Vancouver is looking for people to, there's a lot of space out there on the west side of town that they want certain pads to be filled. Are they looking for other folks that don't look like them? So there are plenty of BIPOC folks that can lease that space. Are we bringing those people in? That's another thing, systemic racism, because I'm sure they're not going to their bars, they're not going to their country or our country clubs, yeah, and those circles.
Yes, I got 2 questions here. I'll ask the first one. What does it mean when we say we want leadership to be more reflective of the people that actually live here? Like, in your experience, we got entrepreneurs, we got directors, we got young students that are leading. They're going to come back and make huge impact. Like, what does that mean when you say you want leadership to be more reflective of the people that actually live here? Because in my experience, again, I'm the one who's, I mean, I know Rashida is from Portland as well. I haven't lived in Vancouver in years. All my work's been in Vancouver. So I work every day in Vancouver, but I live in Portland. So I come back to the comfortable confines of my inner city folks and my family and my friends. And so I don't always bear witness to like grocery stores or like, you know, businesses that I have to occupy in Vancouver, to be transparent with you. So for anybody that wants to answer this, how do we make leadership more reflective? What do we do to raise up business leaders, decision makers in our community?
I'm going to tell you right now, stop importing people. You don't need to import talent. You have great talent here. You have great talent here. You don't need to go into Portland. There are plenty of people here. If you just do something uncomfortable, look around. And if you don't, go to someone that does.
But what happens when they get here? That's the thing. So I know that when I am, you know, when I'm in a space and I'm trying to, you know, get a job or whatever, I'm looking around to see how far can I go. You know, are there people at the top? Can I get to the top? You know, or what are the barriers going to be? And so we haven't necessarily in Clark County created a space where folks can come and lead and feel like they can truly thrive and be successful in their leadership as well. And I also know that really what that representation means is my students need to see me. They need to see me. I am a vice president, but to my students, I am like they auntie, mama, whatever. Like I don't do that because they need to see me and they need to see the real me, so that they feel like they can go somewhere or that they can have inspiration. They need to see people who look like us. And we're not necessarily creating those spaces.
Yep. Total agreement. So the last question I want to ask, and then what I want to do is everybody that's still on here, we still have over 500 people on the call. Thank you so much for being with us, staying locked in. It's 8 o'clock on a Thursday. I know there's other things going, but y'all locking in. Anybody want to text me how that Lakers and Clippers game's going? I'm right here for that. Okay. Anyway, the question that I have, y'all, and I think this is so valuably important, because I seen one of my homies that I follow on Facebook post this, and I see this every day. Now, this is a call out because I think there's some folks on here maybe that have already logged off or they're still on here that, and I'm going to be transparent with you, that black folks are not holding our own people accountable. That is a joke. There are more protests and organizations that support gang violence in the community than there are that are people that are protesting in the community right now for Black Lives Matters. If you don't believe me, do your research. I used to go to midnight basketball at the Salvation Army, sponsored by somebody I didn't even know was going to be one of my wife's best friends and one of my family friends now. It was her dad. And he created a space for us to come in the Portland and inner city to just hoop, play basketball, and stay out the streets. And there are things that go on consistently in this community. It's not always publicized because people don't necessarily want to talk about the positive. They want to talk about the negative things that are going on. But don't be fooled for a minute that Black folks are not doing their part to eradicate the systems that have been set up in place externally from Black folks to be put in proximity that has created that violence. That's a whole nother talk. If you want to dive into that, send a text and I'll follow up with you personally, talk more about that. But what I see is a lot of time, how do you do this? I had a person say, hiya, heya, I think that's what they said. Like, how do you respond when you see a Black folk? And we out at Chipotle. And this is what I do. This is what I do when I see another Black folk. What's up? Good to see you, babe. What's up, boy? I see you. What's up, girl? See you shining, queen. Go ahead, do your thing. Like, I might not say that, but I'm always recognizing Black folks. How do you do that in a way where you are not feeling like you're bothering them or you're like, you know, tokenizing that situation just to say, because it's a Black folk, I see you? Or is that fine? Like that, because there's Black folks that are on this call right now that are wondering how to navigate that because they're dealing with some of that, some of those barriers and challenges. What are y'all thoughts? Oh, Erica said restate the question. So what I'm asking, sorry, it was elaborate. what I'm asking is like, if I go out and I'm at a restaurant or I'm at a game or I'm in the mall and I'm just walking by Foot Locker, every time I see a black person, and really anytime I see anybody, I make eye contact. The thing is, black folks usually always look at me and I give them a head nod. What's up, bro? Good to see you. What's up, fam? You know what I mean? Like, I just recognize black folks, because if you don't understand what I mean by that is like, you know, in Pacific Northwest, especially in Portland, it's the whitest big metropolitan city in America. So when you see another black person, it's like, I see you, I recognize you, I see you out here, baby. Like, power to you. And that's not a thing of like, it's just a thing of endearment. Like, I just, you like family, I see you. So how do you do that in a way where where it's accepted? I mean, I don't know if you guys ever experienced where other black folks, it's like you feel like you're bothering them, or it's like they're not receptive to that. Because again, I'm leaning from the lens of, I know there's black people on this call right now that can relate to what I'm talking about. And I'm not just specifically talking to the white folks who are on this call. So I'm trying to play both sides of perspectives. So does that help, Erica?
Right. So
Okay.
I think I'm getting the question is basically, how do you basically approach another black person without feeling that you're disrupting their day? I don't think there's necessarily a way. I think living in Vancouver for so many years, it's some folks, some black folks acknowledge that there's this mutual respect, but I think that we forget that there's other black folks in Vancouver, and so it becomes awkward. But I personally, when I see another black folk or another elder, I acknowledge they're present. But I think it's just that we have to continue to remember that we are here and that we're not going anywhere, and that we have to realize that if we're able to come in together as a community rather than you see another, you know, other that you don't recognize them. So it's all about respect.
I half the time don't even care if you think I'm bugging. I'm gonna stop you and I'm gonna, you know, talk to you. I do the same thing. I profile everybody. I be seeing, hey girl, how you doing? Hey. I do it all the time in the store. I'm like, hey, you know, at school, at my job, if there's a new black employee or a black student, you gonna get it. I'll be like, hey, stop. Where you come from? Where your people from? So I don't know. For me, it's like that endearment thing. We were always taught to look out and like, you see another black person, you know, definitely give them the head nod or whatever. I think it doesn't work as well, you know, sometimes in different parts of the United States, but here, I think we're always so desperate to see somebody else that is just.
That's a good word. I feel you, Rashida. Okay. So what I would love to do now is I would love to make a transition. So Kevin, I would love to have you come back on the mic, my brother. I know you have a couple things you want to share. And guys, we're going to wrap up here by 8:15. We're going to give up to 1 minute for each storyteller to share a last word of encouragement and perspective. But Kev, I want to pass the mic to you, brother, and you can share, and then we'll end this session. Thank you all for being here again. Thank you so much.
Just big thank you for everyone. Thank you, Tyler. We begin this journey by listening, and so thank you so much for sharing your stories. We want, you know, these sessions by Van Talks to be a place where we have important conversations to our community, and we look to hopefully have these in the future about things that matter. And you'll be getting a survey from this group about kind of your experience, and if there's other things you want to talk about. So thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Thank you all. You're on mute.
On mute. We're just still trying to learn Zoom. When you're in person, bro, you ain't got to be on mute. You just start speaking and people hear. So we're gonna send out a Google form. And so if you've been registered and you've been on this session, you're gonna get an email. Kevin Hebert is gonna send that out to you guys. So check that. It will be after this session. And obviously it's a Thursday. You might not get it tonight, but do that if you really can. Because honestly, we want to get feedback and perspective from what you've learned, what you've taken away, what didn't maybe make sense, any questions you still might have, how we can improve, what a next session would look like. So Kevin is going to share that Google form with you. It's going to be only 5 questions, probably would take you, 5 to 8 minutes to fill out. So we would truly appreciate it if you guys filled out that and took the time to do that. So we're going to run through real quickly our speakers' last words. We're going to start here with my man, Nathan. Nathan, the floor is yours, my
My last words would be, oh man, there's so much to say, but I just don't want to be an endangered species. As a Black man, it's nice, like Rashida, you know, she's a VP at Clark, you know, as an adjunct professor at Clark, it's nice to see women, but white folks, please don't be scared of Black men. Please don't, and white